Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Bolton, thank you for your participation today. Now, in your testimony, you describe a need to change the culture of the Capitol Police from that of a police force to that of a protective agency. First, I guess a two-part question. First, in practice, what does it mean to reshape the Capitol Police into a protective agency? What would the practical and operational effects of that be, number one? Number two, how long do you think such a culture shift would take to implement? I mean, beyond just changing the policies, right, the words on paper and procedures on paper, what needs to be done in terms of training and tactics and ethos to operationalize such a change?
Thank you, sir. To best answer your question, one, in the thought process of a protective agency is geared towards proactive, that you're trying to anticipate as opposed to being reactive. Yes, that is not exactly a quick fix. Yeah, you can put certain things down as directives or SOPs. That's the part. The hard part, and the part that is actually going to require a lot of funds, is having a training services bureau, an office of training, that is geared now to teaching and also doing in-service training in that protective mode, where you're changing basically the courses that you're teaching now, regular police type tactics or police procedures, that now you're shifting. So it is a fundamental shift, and it's not an easy shift because it's going to require for us, one, to have a larger footprint in Cheltenham, to utilize more of that space there, and it's quite a bit of an infrastructure we're going to be requesting, or they would have to request from appropriations, but as well as bringing in subject matter experts, those who have been brought up into that type of environment, in that protective mode, and getting the department up to speed to where now they can do that training in there. So they're going to probably have to bring folks from the outside who are already trained in that skill set, get us that level, the subject matter experts.
Thank you. Next, I want to shift to the topic of white supremacy. It's a conversation we've had in Judiciary Committee with different nominees coming through for confirmation as it pertains to rooting out white supremacy, not just in federal departments and agencies, but in law enforcement agencies, frankly, throughout the country. But specific to this, and it's of top of mind for me, particularly because of, I'll be blunt about it, the relationship that the Trump administration and President Trump himself had with some of these fringe groups, which were in large part what led to January 6th. In the course of your investigation, you found that the Capitol Police's Containment Emergency Response Team, the CERT team, contracted with privately owned entities to train its personnel in firearm marksmanship and other tactics at facilities located outside the District of Columbia metropolitan area. One of the contractors used by the Capitol Police had, according to your report, quote, questionable content on their website, end quote. News reports have suggested that the questionable content includes symbols associated with the white supremacist movement. These reports are, of course, of serious concern. So beyond identifying the fact of the contract and the concerning website content of the contractor, have you undertaken any deeper study into why or how this particular contractor came to be selected? And more broadly, have you already or do you plan to undertake any study of whether the use of this contractor suggests a wider concern with white supremacist ideologies within the force?
At this time, sir, once we discovered that, we conveyed our concerns, as you mentioned, within what we call a management advisory report to the department, our concerns in recommending that they seriously consider not utilizing that particular company. We have not done any in-depth work on investigating that company. I did refer our information in my report over to the Department of Justice for action as they deem appropriate. It's more appropriate for them to look at it as opposed to, that would be somewhat outside of my jurisdiction, unless we could show that there was a contract fraud that would keep it within my purview. But as investigating that kind of an entity, that's not within my jurisdiction, hence why I sent it over to the Department of Justice for that are more appropriate entity to look at that.
And Madam Chair, just a follow-up question on this topic. So appreciate you engaging the Department of Justice for what they and only they can do. I would suggest that along with this culture shift that we're talking about, this is something that remains in your purview. And let me ask an additional specific question to help. Given the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center and other non-contracted training facilities are nearby, is there any justification for Capitol Police relying on contractors to provide training to officers? And have you done a comprehensive review to determine if Capitol Police has entered into other similar contracts instead of relying on available federal resources to train that are available to train other federal law enforcement officers?
There's really no reason for them not to use other federal agencies. My previous employer, Secret Service, when I was on the counter assault team, we would utilize obviously our own training facilities, which were a little bit more extended than what Capitol Police had, but we'd also use DOD. So we wouldn't have those kind of things, but it was approved training through the Office of Training to fit our skills and abilities and needs to complete our mission. We do plan on looking at, for FY 2020, I'm already started trying to work on my annual plan for 2022. One of the things that we are going to look at, we're going to look at all outside contractors for the appropriateness and whether or not we would be able to use, leverage some federal agencies to assist us and save money. And that's kind of what our mandate is, the fraud, waste, and abuse, to weed out those.
Well, the fraud, waste, and abuse is in and of itself meritorious, but to the extent that it gives us a better ability to identify and root out dynamics such as white supremacy, I would argue, bring some urgency to it. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the first part of your answer to that final question sure sounded like there doesn't seem to be any reason or justification for using non-federal resources already available in officer training, and therefore the use of contractors to provide that training doesn't make sense.
That would be correct, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.